Biden talking about the fires? Well, he's out in like a week and a half.
The devastation out there is catastrophic in California. Thousands of houses, schools, businesses burned to the ground. Communities wiped out, lives lost, families forever changed. They're the worst fires to ever hit Los Angeles, ever. And as soon as these fires broke out, I approved the Fire Management Assistance Grants. That's a term of art and how we get help to local officials. These grants cover California's firefighting.
Yeah, they wanted 4 more years of this, exactly. Like, how can you expect young people to like Democrats enough to be active advocates for them, to like make... it's not enough to be right, and Democrats are very often not right. But even if they were often right, it's not enough to be right. You have to be interesting. I'm sorry, that's how it works. Political power spreads through interest and like memification now, okay? People's attention spans are shorter. That's just how the world works these days, okay? You have to pitch people an idea. Who could ever get excited about this?
Cost for things like firefighting equipment, firefighters' salaries, and special capabilities like aircraft. Next, yesterday I immediately approved Governor Newsom's request for what they call...
Democrats get mad when you point this out. Like liberals get mad when you point this out. They get offended at the idea that charisma helps you win elections. They get like, that's like unknown information to them. What? You have to be popular to win elections? That's ridiculous. Why are you enabling the intellectual decline of this country by making the argument that people should be charismatic and popular in order to win an election, huh? Shouldn't them being like boring but right be enough? Man, what the f happened to liberals? You know, liberals used to have a spine. I know it's hard to believe, but like Roosevelt was pretty much like the ideal modern liberal, you know, not going back to Adam Smith or whatever, but I guess you'd say, you know, close enough to what a liberal would be considered today that we can draw a historical comparison. And man had a backbone, which is funny considering, you know, the polio. If anything, you'd think you'd have a leg up on him, especially considering he couldn't walk.
And I know this is all sounds like government talk, but it's called the Major Disaster Declaration.
He wouldn't get elected today? Yeah, because the Dems would bury him. Unironically, yeah. If you take a look at how he spoke back then, and you transplanted him into the modern world today with, just give him the basic position updates, right? So like make him pro-gay marriage or something, I don't know. Like to move him into today, if you took the way he talked then, moved him into today, the Dems would crucify him. They would tear him apart. They'd say he's too radical. They would say that they support public-private partnerships and they think his language is unnecessarily divisive. They would bring on like millionaires and billionaires, you know, to explain how his rhetoric is going to destroy the country. That's 0% chance that FDR would be allowed by the Democrats to win today.
This declaration allows folks, at the request of the governor, the declaration allows folks who have been impacted to get immediate cash assistance to cover things like everything from groceries to baby formula to prescriptions. Because as you've seen and you've reported, a lot of these places are burned to the ground. There's not a single thing left in their homes. And so if they contact disasterassistance.gov, anybody who's lost everything or anything of consequence,
They said that about Bernie, and Bernie was far less emphatic than FDR. Yeah, if you go back and you listen to FDR, for a lot of what he had to say about economics, he was significantly more aggressive and radical than Bernie Sanders was, and they trashed Bernie for being radical on those fronts. It's insane. FDR, the biggest, the most successful president in American history, nearly a century ago, and his economic prescriptions and the way he defended them then, if they were brought in like today,
.gov or 1-800-2, I beg your pardon.
Bernie's nice.
621-3362. That's what they, disasterassistance.gov, 1-800-621-3362.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
I beg your pardon. 1-800-621-3362. That's what they, disasterassistance.gov, 1-800-621-3362 to get the kind of help they need for everything from the basics that they don't have access to right now. And this morning, due to the magnitude of the disaster, I was talking with the governor, and he requested if I could increase the federal funding that was authorized under this legislation from 75% to 90%. We're increasing it.
Do you think I was too mean to that
100%
GPU
of
guy?
all the costs to be covered by the federal government for both the fire management systems grants and the elements of what they call the disaster declaration.
It was a 30-day ban, though.
The federal government will cover 100%
Maybe it should have
of
just
the
been a
cost
day.
for 180 days. This is going to pay for things like debris and hazard material removal, temporary shelters, first responders' salaries, and all necessary
Dana,
measures
could you
to
make it a
protect
day?
life
Is the
and
name
property.
known?
And folks, I want to underscore, I told the governor and local officials, spare no expense to do what they need to do and contain
I'll
these
find it.
fires
Thank you, Thana.
and in their communities that have really been devastated.
Tech
And we're
Wiz
doing
07. Okay,
literally
okay. If I know the
everything
name, I
we
can.
At the federal level. That's also why I call this group of folks around this table of all relevant federal departments and agencies together to discuss what more we can do, and some of the folks around the screen as well. Before we begin things, here's an update on where things stand right now. First, we focused on helping contain these fires. Over the last 24 hours, the United States Forest Service, working with state and local responders, has suppressed over 50 fire starts. And the fire in the Hollywood Hills has been contained by brave firefighters risking their lives.
It's just the underlying problem being politicians who take this job and their role in it as seriously and with as much gravitas as you would get from like a boring mid-level administrator of a fast food chain. You know what I mean? Like this is hard to even watch. That's not an exaggeration. That's not me being politically partisan. It's so uninteresting. It's genuinely difficult to watch, which is insulting.
Right now, 3 major fires are still burning in the Pacific Palisades, in Pasadena, and in Sylmar. I want to be clear. What I know from talking to the governor, that there are concerns out there that there's also been a water shortage. The fact is, the utilities
among us, who we may not have known before, but act out of a sense of courage, but also a sense of community. And I applaud all those who are approaching this crisis with that spirit. And the bottom line
The
is
president being charismatic isn't just about winning the office. Being charismatic saves lives, makes more people interested in watching this. Yeah, absolutely, 100% true. You have the bully pulpit as the president. Like, your charisma, your advocacy, it doesn't just win you the election. It's the bedrock upon which you get to push your policies, to bring people together around them, to convince them of your position, to get people the information they need.
there are incredible heroes every day who are working right now in California on the front lines of this fire. And in particular, I want to thank the firefighters for all they are doing. They are, as the president said, putting themselves in harm's way, and they are doing the work that is about helping people who are perfect strangers to them and doing it in some of the highest moments of need that anyone could face. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Liz Sherwood-Randall.
Turn it back to me.
Okay, back to the president.
Look, I've had a chance to speak with a lot of the elected officials, including the senators, some of the congresspersons, and
Bet those chairs are comfortable, though.
as well as the vice president as well. And I want to be clear that one of the reasons I've asked this larger group to get together is because they control the very agencies that are needed from a federal level to get things done. And you know, we're in a situation where the U.S. Forest Service Chief, Randy Moore, is here. And he's going to provide an update in the fire situation in Los Angeles and discuss how the U.S. Fire Service, the U.S. Forest Service, is assisting Los Angeles and the state of California with fighting the wildfire.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I can't wait for Trump to be president. Just get it over with. It's so tiring. The last 2 weeks of a dying ideology, seeing the most lame duck president that ever lame ducked sit here. It's like I'm watching like a foaming at the mouth dog like walking to behind the shed. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying I want what's about to happen. I'm saying that I want it to be an hour from now, so at least it's over. I don't know. I think he's pretty talented. I've never seen a president hold a press conference while asleep before. It's fair. I'm not usually this coherent when I'm asleep. There's a 50-50 chance he'll be dead by the next election. He's going to die like 3 months after Trump takes office or something. Say what you will about the man, but Trump is entertaining. Yeah, and that's not a compliment to him on a moral level. It's just a necessity of winning these days. Like, again, we're seeing this wave of populism sweep the entire planet. Nobody buys this shit anymore. The Cold War ended, and what did the winners do? The West, the winners of the Cold War. What did we do? Well, now that the Soviet Union wasn't around as an enemy to justify military expenditures, it wasn't around as to justify that level of like xenophobic paranoia, and it also wasn't around to inspire us to do better. And yes, that is true. There are lots of examples where American social progress was pushed forward because of the threat of the Soviet Union. For example, the Soviets, often very hypocritically, constantly accused America of being racist towards its black population, and people were worried that that would radicalize black Americans towards communism because of the racism they experienced. Now they had like an ideological opponent. You know, people accused MLK Jr. of being a communist. You had Muhammad Ali, of course, where his political preferences, his opposition to the Vietnam War, stuff like that were like huge points back in the day. The American government was concerned, like, you know, they don't like black people, but they don't want all those black Americans to go becoming militant communists. That did push people forward. So the Cold War ended. What did we get for it? Nothing. Nothing. Yeah, some former Soviet bloc countries did eventually recover after shock, therapy, and their economies, reached greater highs than they had before. But for the most part in the West, nothing happened. If anything, shock doctrine, yeah. If anything, things stagnated. Culturally, certainly. And then you have the war in Iraq. You have 9/11, the war in Afghanistan and Iraq, and it's like, okay, I guess like we weren't building up towards anything, People want change really badly. They want something more than austerity and dread to the future. Everywhere, all these governments, people being ousted. Do you see this as the death of neoliberalism? I do. And a lot of socialists have said that before, but I'll stake my claim here. This is where I'm putting my stake down. Yeah, I'm not saying it's all going to be dead tomorrow, but yeah, like we are literally seeing in the entire Western world, literally the entire Western world, far right and even far left populist swing as the legacy neoliberal governments crumble. The neoconservative and neoliberal governments crumble, lose public support, lose credibility. Yeah, everywhere. Maybe it bounces back, but I don't know. History ain't progressed that far yet. I can't see the future. Certainly we are at that moment in history.
The
check rides. An important thing to know is that these aviation resources require a lot of support in the form of mechanics, airport space, helicopter managers, area supervisions. And so we work with our state and local and federal agencies to identify these aviation support resources to be sure that we can respond effectively. Now, I had mentioned the amount of fires that we've responded to in the last 48 hours, and I mentioned the 50 fires in the last 24 hours. We continue to have new starts. We're continuing to monitor the types of activities. We have about 8,000 firefighters on standby to add to this if need be. Right now, we are going to monitor the number of aircraft and firefighters we have in that small space. Because as you can imagine, there's only so much you can put in a space.
He does look like Skinny
You
Putin.
create other challenges there. The airspace in that area is pretty tight. You have commercial airports and others in that area. You also, unfortunately, have drones in the air, which is a concern to our pilots and to the safety.
By the way, the post-Soviet thing is shock therapy, not shock doctrine. You had it right. Chat was steering you wrong. I'm gonna keep making that mistake probably forever. I don't know why. I can't sizzle the right word in my head properly. I'm not stake branding it. I don't know. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit about this? Nobody cares. 533 people watching now? Is that the current count? Yeah. Yeah, there you go, I guess. Yeah. This is from the White House YouTube channel. Stop platforming them? Yeah, if you... adding my audience to this, like, multiplies the total view count by 16 times. How many videos did they release in the last hour? Yeah, it's all these cancer moonshot story videos. I don't know. I don't know what that's about.